strengthening the alliance, make it clear to Putin and to China that Europe and the United States are tight, and the G7 is going to move.
All right, we're now joined by international affairs analyst Ryan Chilcote. Ryan, Biden has a lot on his plate in the next week or so. He's got to mend fences with the G7 and with NATO following the Trump years. Can he do it?
I think he can. In a lot of ways, this should be an easy trip. There are no big expectations in terms of substance. What the United States allies want to see from President Biden is a return to normalcy. The last G7 that they would have attended, the last NATO summit, the last interactions the EU had with the last U.S. administration were chaotic, to put it mildly, and disappointing. So if they're normal, if they're cordial, then I think the United States, European allies will see the trip as a positive and won't really expect much more than that. As for the toughest part, that's meeting with President Putin, I think, again, it won't be that difficult. It's highly unlikely that there's going to be a press conference after their meeting. They're just going to have a tete-a-tete, if you will. And I'm sure that President Biden is going to lay out some ground rules for President Putin. And it kind of comes down to President Putin whether he wants to sign up to those ground rules in that off-the-record really meeting, because there aren't going to be any reporters there. There won't be a press conference, and information about what coming out of it will be really tight.
Yeah, we know these two men have met before, not, of course, since Biden has become president. Do you think Europe will sign up to his plan to counter Russia and China?
Absolutely. Russia is perhaps a little bit more challenging if you think about Eastern Europe. Some of the Eastern European countries have warmer relations with Russia than the United States would like. So I think Russia could be a little bit more challenging. China, if the United States is prepared to show leadership, is prepared to fill in the void where that China currently fills, then the Europeans will listen when it comes to U.S. policy on China. But if Biden says, look, don't do business with China, China's just out to get you, but doesn't offer, for example, any investment, any foreign, any trade in place of China that, for example, the Europeans need, then they're going to say, well, let's not go too far.
Yeah, and also, you mentioned that obviously relations likely to be better under Biden than Trump, but the Europeans themselves must have a list of things that they want from him. What is it, do you think, the EU will want to hear from this president?
Well, one of the things that they want to hear, they already have, and that's they want to see some of the big American tech companies, which are making huge amounts of money in their countries. They want to see some taxes from those companies, right? From Amazon, from Facebook, Google. They feel that the fact that they're able to make all of this money in their countries and not pay any taxes has been unfair. And so last weekend, when the G7 finance ministers met as part of a larger deal, the United States agreed, okay, yes, that will happen. We appreciate that they don't have large physical presences in your country, but they do make money there, so we will allow them to be taxed. So that was a huge step in building bridges with the European Union and many of the European countries. In return for that, the U.S. got what it was looking for, which is this idea of a floor on a global floor on a minimum corporate tax rate. Setting that at a minimum of 15%. So Biden's about to hike corporate rates in the United States. He needs to pay for all the stimulus, all the money that he's been investing in the economy. He's going to up taxes on businesses. And what he wants to make sure doesn't happen is for those businesses to then move their jurisdictions to places like Ireland with a lower corporate rate. And lose out on that tax revenue from those American companies simply because they're trying to dodge tax because Ireland has a lower rate. Now, Ireland, if the G7 gets its way, if the United States gets its way, and they're working on this, and everyone seems to be in agreement so far amongst the G7 countries, Ireland won't be able to do that. They'll have to set a reasonably uniform corporate tax rate that everybody will have to sign on to, and there will be no point for the Googles and Amazons of the world to set up shop in Ireland just to avoid paying taxes back in the United States.
Right, we're just looking actually at live pictures from the Royal Air Force in Mildenhall in the US, where President Biden has arrived on his first foreign trip since taking office. We're expecting him to meet and greet with troops and families. I just want to ask you specifically about the G7 summit that he is attending with other world leaders. What do these summits achieve, if anything?
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, they're usually short on substance because there really isn't much point in holding a summit if you haven't already agreed on much of the big things, because there's obviously a political danger that all the leaders will get together, not agree on something, and as a result, lose face in front of their respective constituencies. I think in this particular case, there is room for them to show leadership, though, and that's what we can hope will come out of this. So just about an hour ago, just before President Biden's plane landed, we learned that the United States has bought 500 million doses of vaccine from Pfizer and is going to donate that to COVAX to people around the world so they can get vaccinated. That's huge, right? That's showing that the United States, which so far hasn't really been willing to share any of its vaccines, at least very sparingly up to now, is willing to jump in the game and help the whole world, the poorer countries, vaccinate.
I mean, a cynic might say that that's a tactical move ahead of a world summit in which the focus will be, the spotlight will be on them on the world stage.
Well, of course it is. There's no doubt. There's no doubt that it is a cynical, politically, calculated move. But the result of it is that 250 million people will get vaccinated, which is a good thing, right? That's 1 in 28 people, on the planet will get vaccinated just as a result of that PR move. So, thank goodness for PR and presidential visits, because that's what prompted this, act of goodwill, if you will.
All right, Ryan Chilcote, thanks so much for joining us. Great to get your insight. And of course, we'll be staying with the president's visit to the UK.